Okay, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to install a radiator. So mine busted a hole in it. The hoses were replaced in 2017, probably 10,000 miles ago, so they're very new. But the radiator, I believe, is original, and so luckily I have a Koyo already. This just happened yesterday. And so anyway, should be fairly easy. The only things that I'm actually worried about that I just saw right now are these bolts right here. Hopefully they'll come out without removing the headlights, because to fully remove the headlights I need to remove the front bumper. Hopefully, if anything, I can just loosen up these the two bolts right here and lift up the headlight a little bit to get those brackets out. We will see. But other than those two brackets, and I have a tube holding up the hood, since this bracket's going to need to come out, and the hood prop is obviously connected to it. So once I remove these two brackets, disconnect the fan plug, remove the hose clamps off of the hoses, and disconnect the hoses, you should be able to remove the radiator. For me, I already, all my coolant's gone, and hopefully my engine's okay, but all the coolant's gone. So I'm not going to show you how to drain it, but there is a drain on the bottom. Or actually, I don't know if this is a drain right here, but usually there's a drain on the bottom. I'll have to pull out the radiator and show you guys that part, but that part's pretty self-explanatory. You just need to lift the car up and drain the coolant. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, before I forget, if you are trying to drain your complete system, there are other ports that you're supposed to drain besides just the radiator plug. There are two lines in the water lines, or two nipples on the water line. That's the middle of the car. Right underneath, there's a cover. Right underneath the middle of the car, there's two drain bolts there, and there's two more on the actual engine, right below the heads. So you can see right here, this is the front bank. This is your triangular piece, is your exhaust manifold, and there's a piece going out there. If you it's really hard to reach, which is why I'm not doing it. It's very close to the firewall. I can't see it. I can feel it. And then there's this one on the rear bank, right below the heads as well, or right on the side of the heads, I should say. So it's up to you whether you want to drain all those ports. So two on the engine, two on the water pipes underneath the car, and one on the radiator to drain the system completely. Okay, I'm going to start off by trying to remove these brackets. Okay, they aren't too long, so hopefully this one will come out. All right, that is very good news. Okay, I'm going to remove this clamp down, and then I'm going to twist it. Move this clamp down a little bit more. Okay. All right, here's a view of the back of the radiator. So now I'm going to remove these plugs. Okay, with these plugs unplugged, what I'll probably end up doing is try to remove the fan first to get it out of the way of the bottom hose clamps. So let me grab some 10 mils. Okay, so there's two more bolts holding on the fan, one right there and one on the opposing side. I'm going to remove those right now. Alright, with the bolts to the fan removed and then unplugged, we can now remove the fan. Here's a look at the bolts. Actually, I didn't realize you don't have to remove the bolts completely on the bottom. Obviously, I wanted to because the radiator is what I'm changing, but if you're just removing the fan, you can just loosen the bolts on the bottom and slide it up. Okay, so now we have a look at the radiator. So right there is the drain plug, that little twist turn knob that looks exactly like this one. So that's where you would normally drain the radiator from. So now all I need to do, since my radiator is probably drained, I'm going to remove that bottom clamp and then hopefully struggle off that hose and then lift out the radiator. Great. Okay, well that escalated quickly. You saw how much coolant came out of the radiator, which is actually a good thing. It means that I wasn't completely bone dry of coolant. So that gives me hope, and I probably should have released that drain instead, so I had a controlled drain on the radiator instead of a waterfall of coolant once I released that hose. Anyhow, what's done is done, so radiator is completely disconnected. All I need to do now is remove it out the top. Okay, so a real quick note on draining the stock radiator. There's a nipple at the bottom, so that's where it's going to drain. It's convenient. You just turn this, loosen this, and the coolant will drain downwards instead of out towards the back of the car. So just put something underneath this nipple and drain it completely, and then you're good to go. Okay, the radiator is out. This is what it looks like without the radiator. And here's the stock radiator. It must have blew along one of the seams in the bottom where the aluminum connects to the plastic, which would be common for these kind of plastic radiators, because that's where I saw coolant pooling up, basically around this area. And I don't see any large holes or anything like that. And that would also be why my radiator still had a decent amount of coolant in it. Anyhow, let's unbox the Koyo. All right. Thanks again, Dennis Chang, for this radiator. There you go. Looks pretty nice. Probably one of the most important parts to the radiator is this chamfer right here on the front, because the front of the radiator subframe is curved. So I saw one radiator, I can't remember which brand, didn't have a provision for that, so it was hitting and couldn't sit down far enough. But you should expect pretty good fitment with Koyo and pretty solid. I've had problems with some Koyos in the past, but mostly they've been good. So let's get it installed. Okay, so to prep for installation, I tighten the drain plugs. They're pretty loose from the factory. And I loosened these two bolts, as you can see here, so that I can slide the fan on, as I showed you earlier. And I removed the top 4 bolts completely. You do want to give the radiator a once over just to see if there's any issues, visible issues. You could do a pressure test. Some people do throw these radiators like in a bathtub and plug up the holes, and maybe plug up one hole and then put compressed air on the other side and see if there's any bubbles. You could totally do that. You do want to check this guy just to do a visual, make sure it looks like, you know, they used enough sealant on that. And then overall just give it a once over. You know, these welds in there don't look amazingly great, but it is what it is. So hopefully there's no issues. Like I said, I did have one issue with one radiator, Koyo Radiator, before in one of my past cars, and it was a pain warranting it because Koyo does provide you this sheet, right? It says that Koyo Rad has a warranty procedure in place for each authorized Koyo Rad dealer. Contact the dealer, basically. I contacted the dealer. The dealer said, "Oh, you got to contact Koyo." I contacted Koyo. Koyo said, "You got to contact the dealer." So they were just giving me the runaround. That was a real shocker. And so, you know what? At that point, I just purchased another Koyo and it was fine. And I just returned the other one. Usually radiators like this, if there's like a pinhole leak or somewhere, something like that, in a weld, you can just go get it brazed or fixed up by a radiator shop, no problem. So, but anyway, Koyo mostly are pretty reliable. So let's throw this guy in right now. Okay, that fits nicely. All right, radiator is in loosely. So what I'm going to do now is attach the hoses. All right, so using my special tool, I can position the radiator hose clamp back into the original position that it was in, which I find I like to do because the rubber hose is kind of had its shape already indented by this clamp, so I'm going to try to match that up to where it was prior. The fan shroud is hitting the radiator hose. Looks like I need to notch the shroud. Not what I would expect from Koyo, but that is what it is. Okay, so I made a little mark right here. I don't need to cut it that high, but I need to just cut it a little bit and it should go on. All right, this is what I ended up notching. So this is the bottom of the radiator, and we're about 1.25 inch inch to inch and an eighth from the side. Total width of the notch is almost 2 inches, and it's roughly 1/2 inch tall. And then for the upper portion, upper hose, it is about 1 to 1.1 inch in from the side as well, and about 1.5 inch wide, and probably 1/4 inch or so, a little more than 1/4 inch deep. So yeah, not too impressed that we have to do this for a Koyo, but yeah, again, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, you can see on that mirror that the clearance just clears the hose, so pretty good. See on the other side, just clears. Okay, you can see that it now has clearance enough for the hose and the clamp to go through. All right, I got the hose clamp on. I think I forgot to press record. And don't forget to tighten these. And so now all you need to do is fill the system with coolant and bleed it. So I'll show you that in a second.